Bruce, you must have something really good too.
Of course I do. It's Bruce Danielson, and I guess I'm here to entertain you too.
Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order this informational meeting of Tuesday, November 16th, 2021 to order. First off, we have committee reports. Sioux Falls Development Foundation. Councilor Erickson is on her way, so when she gets here, we'll roll back into her. This time we'll have council remarks. Any councilors have remarks? On a personal note, I'd just like to say if you saw Don Koenig today, compliment on his outfit that he wore. Thank you very much for that. And now we're into our presentations. October 2021 financial results. Sean Pritchard.
I haven't seen Don yet, but I am looking forward to that tonight. So, good afternoon, Council. Here to present the October monthly financial report. I'd like to say it will be materially different than what you've seen over the last few months, but it is very much in line with many of the trends and so forth that you've seen here and we've talked about over this period of time. We always kind of start with talking about the labor force here, and one of the things you will see is a retraction of that labor force here, particularly over the last several months. It's not uncommon for that to occur in the months of August and September in years past, pre-COVID. A little bit more precipitous, but again, I think how real this is for Sioux Falls, I'm not exactly sure, but certainly you are seeing some reductions in overall labor force on a national level and seeing some of that trending happen. Not something I'd get overly concerned about at this point, but when you match that against the unemployment rates that we've seen here, everybody knows that we're struggling a lot with labor force and finding labor for all of our industries here in the city of Sioux Falls and elsewhere in the nation overall. But we were at 1.9% unemployment in the month of October, and the last time we hit that, or excuse me, that was the month of September of 2021. Last time we hit that was in October of 2020. That would be 21 years ago. That's not to say that we haven't hovered around 2% for many years, 17, 18, 19. You can see that we've been this low quite some time, but we are certainly at the bottom level of what we've seen historically. And then lumped on top of that, and you hear this a lot in the news, a lot of discussion regarding to in regards to inflation and some of the things that we've been experiencing. So we did see an uptick, I think nationally, they said it was the highest they've seen in 30 years. Certainly it's the highest we've seen here, at least for the past 20 years, and it's up from 5.3% and 5.4% over the last couple of months. Now, a lot of that is still being driven by the energy sector. Energy is up 30% year over year, and so that is driving a large part of that. If you take out food and energy, I think we're hovering around 4.2%, which is still on the higher side, but not as dramatically high as by saying the 6.2% that you do see there. Excuse me, if you remove the food and energy inflation, it's 4.6% overall. And again, we talked about this, but the gas, the energy sector is driving much of this, with the prevailing portion of that really being in the gas side, and then followed by the natural gas. As far as building permits, again, continuing from previous months, we continue to see robust growth overall in terms of building permits. We were at $917.8 million at the end of October. That's tracking about $345 million, or 60% ahead of last year, about 32% ahead of where we were 2 years ago at this time. New residential values continue to increase. That's up about $60 million, or about 41% over the last 2 years. New commercial overall is up $139 million, and as in the past, that's being driven a lot, in large part by the multifamily. I think the one thing we haven't really talked a lot about is new commercial additions and remodels, which is up $139 million. And to give you some thoughts on that, you know, we hear a lot about the new stuff being built, but these additions and remodels are up significantly. In fact, the $139 million is as much as what we had for an increase in manufacturing, office, institutional apartments, educational, hospitality, strip malls, and restaurants. So it really has contributed significantly to the overall growth that we've experienced here over this year. Through October, 782 single-family houses have been permitted. That's up about 23% from where we were last year. 1,595 multifamily units, again, still up dramatically, about 52% overall. And then total residential units are just shy of 2,800 units through the month of October. That's up about 38% from where we were last year at this time. Sales tax figures continue to come in very strong. They were up 21.4% in October. As you can see, last year we were up slightly in October, but not very much as we were in those pandemic months. However, if you compare to a normalized year of 2019, we're still up 23% over that 2-year period. So we are continuing to see growth, and you're seeing that trend line of the 12-month rolling average continue to increase over time after it bottomed out in the earlier portion of this year. Same holds true for the entertainment tax. You can see it was up 28.4% over where we were last year. We are still in that period through March of this year of negative growth overall for the entertainment tax. So that contributes to the overall increase. But if you look at us compared to 2 years ago, we're still up over 17% overall. And that's being, of course, really driven by the restaurant industry here locally, as well as the recovery of the hospitality and hotel sectors. It's really difficult to pinpoint one area where we're seeing the most growth overall. It really has been across the board. You've got your top 20 of our industries from which we generate our general sales taxes from, and you can see over the last 3 periods, when we're comparing to 2 years ago, they've all remained positive. Lumber's in the current month over 2 years ago up 33%, department stores 19%, eating establishments 22%, home furniture 21%, sporting goods 52%. If you look at the remote retailer, that's 46% over just a year ago. It's difficult to compare that to 2 years ago when we didn't really have the remote retail sales taxes being generated. Those are all consumer-driven type of industries, and they're all coming in very strong. But on the business side, manufacturing up 61%, business services up 22%, wholesale trade up 15%. So on the business side, you're also seeing very strong growth overall in all those areas also. So it's really, from the good standpoint is we're seeing it come across the board and not in one particular industry. The lodging tax continues to perform significantly better. It's up 58% in October after declining 26.3% last October. Very solid figure if you compare it to 2 years ago. We're up 16%. So in terms of overall, hospitality is performing as well as it was 2 years ago. Now, if you look at the occupancy rates of where we're at, we're maybe just sliding a little bit on the occupancy of this, but we haven't seen the dramatic decrease during the shoulder season that we expected might occur, and the rates are staying higher than normal. So the revenue they're generating per average room is actually higher than what they had seen 2 years ago. And as far as the bid, that also has seen a positive growth, up 28% compared to where we were at this time last year. And overall, it's up 3% from where we were 2 years ago. So it's one of the first times we've seen bid taxes actually be higher than they were 2 years ago at this time. Overall, in terms of the general fund, similar to where we were last month, and this disregards all of the one-time local government assistance dollars that we've received. We have generated revenue approximately 78% of our budget, which compares to 72% last year, 75% the year before. So we're still well in line with where our expectations are and ahead of that, primarily due to the sales taxes increases that we've experienced here over the course of this year. On the expenditure side, again, this is disregarding any one-time expenditures related to the local government assistance dollars. You can see we've expended 74% of our budget compared to 72% last year. We are about $11 million ahead of where we were last year in terms of expenditures, and that's being driven primarily by payroll in parks, fire, and police in those areas. One thing I would also point you to, page 1 of the financial report, you'll see that we've, toward the top of the page, we've made some estimations in terms of where we expect revenues to land for this year. As we get closer to the end of the year, we continue to look at these and adjust accordingly. Right now, we are expecting an increase of about $9 million, or about 5% over the original budget for the general fund. Predominantly, this is related to growth in the sales taxes, but also we've seen above expectations as it relates to building permits and the bank franchise fees. And these have been partially offset by lower than expected health department charges. And we're also seeing some market adjustments for some of our treasury investments. As interest rates are increasing, we're having to mark down the value of those investments. We do expect to come in probably in that 94 to 97% of budget in terms of expenditures, as we have historically. So it will leave us in a good position, in a solid position in terms of fund balance as we head toward the end of 2021. We certainly remain optimistic, conservative in our outlooks in terms of what our expectations for revenues will be as we continue to follow some of the significant increases we've experienced and see how long that continues. But we also know we have some headwinds ahead of us. This inflation that we talked about is real for us, and it's going to increase the cost of our projects, particularly on the construction side, for anything that we're going to be doing going forward. Labor supply shortages and supply shortages are going to push up pricing for those as well. So those are probably some of the more significant challenges that we'll continue to keep an eye on as we go forward. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Councilors, questions? Councilor Selberg?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Pritchett, for the presentation. What are your thoughts and predictions on inflation? How much longer are we going to see it climb, and how high will it
People who
climb?
are fairly smarter, I would think, than I am, continue to advocate for the fact that it is, what do they say, transitory inflation, that it's going to go away next year. I think Wall Street doesn't believe that, and I think you're seeing indications of that. I believe with all of the stimulus funds that have been appropriated or expended or approved, chasing a smaller amount of supplies, I don't see inflation probably making a major adjustment here. I think we'll continue to see this be elevated for a while unless the Federal Reserve really takes a more staunch steps and starts increasing interest rates. But my personal opinion anyway.
You see it continuing to elevate?
I see it, I don't know that it'll get much higher than it currently is, but I could see it staying higher for a while,
Right. Interesting. Well, thank you.
potentially.
Other questions? Well, I'll jump in then. You talked about the internet or the remote retail sales, and I'm assuming, of course, that's the internet sales tax that we've been collecting lately. I see that it's 17.7 million of 132 million. So I assume that now we're up over 10% of our sales tax revenue is coming from internet sales?
Let me turn to that page. Apologize here. Let's see if I can
Number
bring that up.
10 would,
Oh, excuse me.
there we go.
Yeah, so you're looking at that increase, and keep in mind, in 2019, we really weren't collecting a remote retailer. So that is real growth, right, in terms of, I mean, we had some remote retail sales taxes that were coming in, but we wasn't really monitored or measured in any great way. And unless they had a bricks and mortar establishment in the state, they weren't required to remit it. Some were doing it voluntarily. Certainly that changed immensely. So you can see this looks up 96%, but that's relative to the fact that we weren't collecting a lot. That said, we are still up 46% this year versus last year. And so it continues to escalate. And it is an interesting thing to see, you know, of the, that is the gross change. So the 10%, you say it's probably not 10% of all of our sales tax base. It's probably representing, in this case, in the last month, 12, 13, 14% of the gross increase is derived directly from that.
Okay, well, it's interesting as you pointed out, a few years ago, we really weren't collecting it, and now it's coming in gangbusters. And as the world changes, I don't see that going away. People are going to, with the supply chain shortage, they go to the internet to pick up the things they can't get locally right now.
And we did end up losing. So, I mean, one of the things we had to contemplate a couple of years ago is we knew we were going to lose the sales taxes on internet services. So the federal government eliminated the opportunity for us to collect that. So we have lost over the last couple of years about $9 million. So it's been nice to see the remote retailer sales taxes being available to help offset and even double that from what we had lost in that opportunity.
Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you very much for
you.
your presentation. At this time, I'd like to circle back to committee reports before we go to our next one. Councilor Erickson?
Thank you. I was not there, unfortunately. I know a few other council members did go to the annual meeting on Wednesday, November 10th. Unfortunately, I was out of town for my day job and was gone. So if anybody else wants to chime in for that, I apologize that I was not able to attend. But I have, we do have a handful of meetings left for the remainder of the year and starting next year. I serve as the ex officio, so non-voting member, and really just to collect information. As you know, Development Foundation was in front of us and has met with us and talked about the TIF out at the Amazon site, as well as a lot of other things that they've started to get the ball rolling. So more to come on that, and as I go to the next meeting, I will certainly report back. Thanks.
Thank you. We'll move on now. 2022 legislative priorities. Jim David, please.
Good afternoon, City Council. The 2022 legislative session begins on Tuesday, January 11th with the Governor's State of the State Address. This legislature has already held 2 special sessions this fall and approved a special investigative committee and adopted the Senate's legislative district map named Sparrow. Following the 2022 midterm elections, Sioux Falls will be represented by 10 legislative districts, almost 30% of the legislature. Currently, 9 districts include a portion of Sioux Falls. There will also be 6 districts within the city compared to 3 currently. This slide provides a comparison between the current 2011 map and the map recently adopted and signed into law by the governor. In addition to the district boundary changes, a new district, District 2, will extend into eastern Sioux Falls and include the cities of Brandon and Valley Springs. District 25 will include a portion of northern Sioux Falls and extend past Del Rapids and encompass all of Moody County. As in previous years, the City of Sioux Falls has worked with our partner communities, including Brandon, Del Rapids, and Minnehaha County, to develop a legislative statement. The group, which included Councilors Erickson and Jensen, Mayors Heinitz and Early, and Commissioners Karski and Heiberger, agreed to remove some of the items from the list, including a proposed gross receipts tax for counties, similar to an entertainment tax that the city has, legal publication reduction for counties, reducing it from 2 to 1, and Emerald Ash Borer funding. The legislature did appropriate funding for Slip Up Creek Road, so this item was removed. The group did agree to a few new items that focused on housing and county needs. When we talk about housing, I wanted to show you this graph that illustrates the state of the housing market in the Sioux Falls area. In October 2019, the average price of a home was $243,000. In October of 2021, the prices jumped to $302,000, a 24% increase in 2 years, and almost twice the average sale price from a decade ago. The inventory of homes is also down 33.5% compared to 2019, with only a little over 1,000 homes on the market as of October of this year. With the average price of homes at historic highs, the group felt that the legislature should revisit its program that freezes the property value for qualified elderly and disabled persons. In addition to income eligibility requirements, the program stipulates that the home's full and true value cannot exceed $202,943 unless the applicant has previously qualified. This item asks the legislature to revisit this maximum value and consider changes based on the current real estate market throughout the state. It is becoming increasingly rare to have a home valued at just over $200,000. This next item was developed in consultation with Public Works and addresses new home affordability and the community's ability to meet the demands for housing. It requests that the legislature create a grant and/or principal forgiveness program for infrastructure funded by ARPA funds. Reducing the cost of water and sewer infrastructure will positively impact the price of residential lots. This effort will also provide needed assistance to several communities throughout the state that are at or are approaching debt capacity. The third item was brought forward by Minnehaha County, and it provides support for diversion programs for low-level offenders such as community service and case management in lieu of incarceration. This would also reduce the pressure on county jails and the costs that are placed on taxpayers. This next item was brought forward by Councilor Brecky and would create what was called the Culturally Competent Care Act. It would build networking capacity through a veteran and military family navigator at Helpline 211. It would develop culturally competent communities of support throughout South Dakota. And 3, it creates educational components for community partners based on best practices around a health and wellness model of care. This would be a cost share program with other partner organizations. Within your packet, you do have a draft resolution with the changes presented. If there are any objections, please let me know. And a final resolution will be brought forward later on in December. Happy to answer any of your questions.
Counselors, questions? Counselor Sideburn?
Hold on, I have to part. There you go. With the redistricting, maybe you know this or don't. So we've got now 10 representatives and 30% of the legislature. How many representatives and what percentage of the legislature is out around Rapid?
I don't know that question, or I don't know
Figured
the
I was
answer to that
throwing one
question.
out of there.
Yeah. You know, Rapid City right now, if I remember correctly, is around 70,000. I'm looking to a former Rapid City resident, but I don't know if she knows or not, but I think it's around 70,000 is what, or maybe it's even approaching 80,000.
How many representatives did we have before the redistricting?
How many?
Yeah.
We have 9 districts, so that'd have been 27, and so add 3, be 30 now with the new redistricting.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Other questions, comments? Seeing none, thank you very much. We'll be in touch. At this point, we go to public comment. If anybody's here that would like to speak on any of the 2 items that were presented, now's your time. Come forward, young man.
Mike Zitter, Sioux Falls. I just got a couple of issues, items I'd like to recommend you guys bring forward to the legislature. The first one I was thinking of is, I think TIFs are a big thing for us. I think it's something we can start thinking about once in a while. I've been trying to convince the legislature myself to kind of talk about historic TIFs. Like, what would it mean to the city if we can add historical features to encourage people to invest in historical properties like many historical houses, let's see here, like the old Air Force Base Industrial Park. Someday in the future we can use TIFs to invest in fixing that place up. Sioux Falls Arena. What would it mean to be able to add historical features to TIFs? I think that's just a thing we can add, since we kind of like the idea of using TIFs, private investment. And another thing I want to keep pushing, try to help work with the legislature to help restrict the federal government in some of our sovereign and our state and local affairs. I think we should be careful of some of the laws coming down the pike in the future, and kind of scares me some of the federal gun laws, immigration laws, stuff like that come into the voting rights laws. We should be careful when we take money from the federal government. And then, in one such law, like for example, this one, if you look at the industrial, the new bill just passed this year, it's kind of leery. I mean, I picked this little section off. I mean, we might benefit from it, but at the same time, what cities want to get the benefit the most? Probably most likely the cities that have the most immigration. So I mean, that grant might look good for us with our transit program, but I think going forward we should be leery on what the federal government is wanting to do and how we should use their money. I think I'm a big believer in just using our state and local taxes, and I think we should be get back to doing that in the future. Just a couple items I would like to see lobby the legislature to in the future. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, Counselor Jensen.
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion to enter into executive session for consulting with legal counsel or reviewing communications from legal counsel about proposed or pending litigation or contractual matters pursuant to South Dakota Codified Law 1-25-2-3.
Move in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry, we need a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Starr,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Sale.
Yes. The motion passes 8-0. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll move to executive session.